I stood outside room 214 of the Grandview Hotel, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest, my fingers curled into a fist, hovering just inches from the door. I could hear them inside. Jessica, my wife, and some other man. At first, it was just muffled voices. Then laughter, her laughter. That sweet, familiar sound that used to be just for me. Except this time, it was different. It was fake, forced, sluttish. I shouldn't have been here. I should have turned around, walked away, left her in her filth. But something inside me needed to see it with my own eyes. A voice, his voice, murmured something low. Then a soft, breathy giggle. And then I heard the worst sound of my life. The unmistakable creak of a hotel bed. Rage swallowed me whole. My vision blurred. My pulse roared in my ears. Without thinking, without even breathing, I grabbed the doorknob and twisted. Unlocked. The door swung open. And there she was, Jessica, straddling some half-naked, grinning scumbag like she'd forgotten she was married. For a second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then she turned and saw me. And the first thing out of her mouth? "It's not what it looks like." Jessica's face went pale the moment our eyes met. For a second, she just froze, straddling that piece of trash like a deer caught in headlights. The guy beneath her, some smug-looking punk with a gym rat build, looked over his shoulder at me and just grinned, like he was proud of himself, like this was just another Tuesday for him. And then, the first words out of Jessica's mouth, "It's not what it looks like." I let out a sharp laugh, one of those bitter, humorless ones. "Oh, really?" I said, stepping into the room. My voice was calm, too calm. My hands were shaking with rage, but my tone? Ice cold. "Because it looks like my wife is grinding some loser in a cheap hotel room." She scrambled off him, yanking a sheet around herself as if that could undo what I'd already seen. "Ethan, listen to me," she said, holding up her hands. "I can explain." Oh, I bet she could. I turned my attention to the guy still lying in bed, completely unbothered by my presence. "You got a name, buddy?" I asked. He smirked, stretching lazily like he wasn't half a second away from getting his face smashed in. "Travis." Of course. He looked like a Travis. I exhaled sharply, clenching my jaw so hard it hurt. "All right, Travis. You knew she was married." He shrugged. "She said you two were having problems. Said you were kind of boring, actually." He grinned wider. "Guess she needed a real man." Jessica flinched at that, like even she knew he'd just crossed a line. But I wasn't looking at her anymore. My vision tunneled in on him. I moved before I even made a conscious decision. 1 second, I was standing still. The next, my fist was colliding with his smug mouth so hard I felt his teeth scrape against my knuckles. Travis grunted in pain and rolled off the bed, hitting the floor with a loud thud. He groaned, clutching his jaw, but I wasn't done. I grabbed the lamp from the nightstand, ready to smash it over his head, but Jessica's scream shattered through my anger. "Ethan, stop!" She threw herself in front of him, arms outstretched like she was defending him. That stopped me cold. My wife, who had just been cheating on me in the most humiliating way possible, was now shielding him from me. I dropped the lamp, my hands shaking. "You're defending him?" My voice came out rough, barely above a whisper. She blinked, tears welling in her eyes. Tears, like she was the victim here. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "I was going to tell you, Ethan. I swear. It's just, you've been so distant. You never listen to me anymore." I let out a hollow laugh. "Oh, so this is my fault?" Jessica wiped at her eyes, putting on her best sad and misunderstood expression. "I just felt so alone. You work so much, and when you come home, you barely even look at me anymore. Travis. He was there for me." I stared at her, trying to process the unbelievable audacity of this woman. She didn't even have the decency to own up to it. She was twisting the blame, flipping the script to make herself look like the wounded party. "So, let me get this straight," I said slowly. "Instead of talking to me like a grown adult, instead of telling me you were unhappy, you decided to spread your legs for this piece of garbage?" Travis, who had finally gotten off the floor, scowled. "Hey, man. Shut the hell up." I snapped, and to my satisfaction he did. Jessica reached for me then, but I stepped back, and for the first time since walking in, I saw something real flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, not regret, fear. She knew. She knew I was done. I turned toward the door, grabbing my keys. She rushed after me, the sheet slipping from her shoulders as she moved. "Wait, Ethan. Please, don't." I turned to face her one last time. "You made your choice, Jessica. Now live with it." And with that, I walked out. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't stay to listen to more lies. I just left, and I never looked back. But she did. And a year later, she would track me down. The drive home felt like a dream, one of those slow, numb, surreal nightmares where you're aware of everything, but nothing feels real. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My ears still rang from Jessica's voice. The pathetic excuses. The cheap hotel air thick with the smell of perfume and betrayal. I should have been angry, furious, but all I felt was this cold emptiness spreading inside me, like something had been ripped out and replaced with nothing. 3.5 years. That's how long I'd been married to her. How long I'd built a life with a woman who, in the end, had no problem throwing it all away for some idiot named Travis. By the time I reached home, I'd already made my decision. I wasn't going to fight for this. I wasn't going to beg, cry, or let her manipulate me into staying. Jessica had made her choice in that hotel room, and now it was my turn. I parked the car in the driveway, walked inside, and stared at the place we called home. Photos of us on the walls, our couch, the dining table we had picked out together, the place that was supposed to be ours. Not anymore. I grabbed a suitcase and started packing. Clothes, essentials, my laptop. I didn't take everything, just enough to disappear for a while. I wasn't going to wait for the tears, the fake apologies, or whatever pathetic act Jessica would put on once she got home. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of another conversation. I scribbled 3 words on a piece of paper, left it on the counter, and walked out the door. I know. Goodbye. I didn't go to a friend's house. Didn't go to my parents'. Instead, I drove to a city 2 hours away, booked a motel, and just sat there. The weight of everything crashed down on me at once. My marriage, my home, my entire life. I had walked away from it in a matter of minutes. And the worst part? I didn't even feel sad about losing her. What I did feel was anger at myself. Anger that I hadn't seen it sooner. That I had been stupid enough to trust her. The next morning, my phone was flooded with missed calls and texts from Jessica. "Jessica. Ethan? Where are you? Jessica. Please talk to me. Jessica. I made a mistake. I love you. Let's fix this. Jessica, you're being dramatic. Don't throw our marriage away over one night. Jessica. Answer me." I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. One night? That was a lie. No one just accidentally books a hotel room with someone and cheats one time. I didn't respond. I blocked her number. Then I called a lawyer. The next few months were a blur. I filed for divorce immediately. Jessica tried calling me from different numbers, sent emails, even showed up at my work once trying to talk. I refused. There was nothing left to say. She had already proved that her words meant nothing. The last time I saw her was at the lawyer's office. She sat across from me, her makeup perfect, her expression calculated. I had once loved this woman. I had once thought she was the most beautiful person in the world. Now all I saw was a stranger. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she said, voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "People work through these things, Ethan. Marriages survive worse." I didn't even blink. Not this one. The papers were signed that day. No drama, no begging. Just cold finality. I walked out of that office a free man. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. For a year, I rebuilt myself. I moved to a different state. Started a new job. Focused on me. No dating, no relationships. Just getting my life back. Jessica? She became a ghost. Sometimes, I'd hear from mutual friends that she was going through a rough time. That she had tried to date, but couldn't find the right guy. Did I care? Not even a little. She had destroyed us and I had walked away. End of story. Or at least I thought it was. Because a year later, she found me. A year had passed since I walked out of Jessica's life. And in that time, I had done everything possible to erase her from my existence. New city, new job, new routines. She was nothing more than a bad memory. A cautionary tale I kept in the back of my mind as a reminder to never be that blind again. And yet, despite all my efforts to move on, Jessica wasn't done with me. It started with a text. An unknown number popped up on my phone one evening as I was sitting on my couch, unwinding with a beer and a movie. I almost ignored it until I saw what it said. Jessica, I know where you are. My stomach clenched. I stared at the screen, a cold prickle running down my spine. She couldn't have known. I had cut off everyone connected to her, blocked her, changed my number, even made sure my address wasn't easily found online. I didn't reply. A minute later, another message. Jessica, I just want to talk. Please. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Every rational part of me screamed to block the number and move on. But curiosity, dangerous, stupid curiosity, made me hesitate. Before I could decide, my phone buzzed again. Jessica, I'm outside. I froze. My apartment was on the 3rd floor, so she wasn't literally outside my window. But the fact that she was here in my city at my building, that was something else entirely. I stood up slowly, walked to the window, and pulled the curtain back just enough to see the street below. And there she was, Jessica, standing on the sidewalk under a street lamp, arms crossed, her gaze locked onto my building like she could sense exactly where I was. My stomach twisted into a knot. For a second, I just stared. She looked different. Her hair was darker, her face thinner, like she had lost weight. But the biggest change? The expression on her face. She wasn't here to apologize. She wasn't here to beg. She was here for something else. I let the curtain fall back into place and exhaled slowly. My heart was pounding. She had no reason to be here. No right. I had made it clear a year ago that she was nothing to me anymore. And yet, she had still come. Another text came in. Jessica, I saw the light in your window. I know you're there. Just open the door, Ethan. Just talk to me for 5 minutes. A part of me wanted to ignore her, let her stand out there all night until she realized she had no power over me anymore. But another part, the part that needed to know why she was here, couldn't let it go. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. I stepped out of the building and walked toward her, keeping my face unreadable. She watched me approach, arms still crossed, like she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. What the hell are you doing here, Jessica? My voice was flat, devoid of emotion. She let out a breath, shaking her head. You really just cut me off like that, she said, like she couldn't believe it. You left and never looked back. I scoffed. What did you expect? You cheated, I left. It's pretty simple. Jessica's eyes darkened. You didn't even give me a chance to explain. I laughed. Actually laughed. Explain. I gestured toward the building. You think showing up at my place uninvited after a year is some kind of second chance? You lost the right to explain anything the second you spread your legs for that loser in the hotel. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't argue, because she knew I was right. I shook my head, exhaling sharply. Why are you here, Jessica? For the first time, she looked uncertain. Her confidence wavered, her eyes flickering away for just a moment before she muttered, I needed to see you. I stared at her. Lies. There was more to this. She wasn't the type to just show up without a reason. Jessica didn't do things without an angle. I crossed my arms. See me for what? What's the real reason? She hesitated, chewing her lip. And then, so softly I almost didn't hear it, she said, I made a mistake. I let out another dry laugh. No kidding. Jessica's gaze snapped up, sharp and defensive. Ethan, don't be like this. We were together for 3.5 years. That has to mean something. I stepped closer, dropping my voice. It did, until you threw it away. She swallowed hard. I wasn't happy. You weren't happy. I clenched my jaw. I wasn't happy because I was married to a liar. Jessica flinched. For a moment, she looked genuinely upset. But I had seen this act before. I had fallen for it before. Not this time. I sighed, shaking my head. Whatever this is, whatever reason you came here, it doesn't matter. You need to leave. Her expression flickered with something dark. Something almost angry. You really don't care, she whispered. No, I met her gaze, unwavering. I don't. For a second, I thought she might slap me. The fire in her eyes, the way her hands curled into fists. I could see the rage bubbling inside her. But then, just as quickly as it appeared, she smoothed it over. The mask came back on. Jessica let out a slow breath and nodded. Okay, she said, forcing a small smile. Okay, I'll go. She turned, walked a few steps, then stopped. Without looking back, she said, You'll regret this. And then she disappeared into the night. I stood there for a long time watching the spot where she had been. Something told me this wasn't over. And I was right, because 2 weeks later, I got a call that changed everything. 2 weeks passed and I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, Jessica was finally gone. After that night outside my apartment, I hadn't heard from her again. No more texts, no unexpected appearances, no cryptic threats about how I'd regret this. It was like she had vanished back into whatever miserable hole she had crawled out of. And that was fine by me. I threw myself back into my routine, work, gym, occasional drinks with coworkers. Life was normal again, peaceful, until I got the call. It was a Saturday afternoon. I had just finished a workout, sweat dripping down my back as I walked out of the gym, when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in my gut told me to answer. I swiped the screen and brought the phone to my ear. Yeah, a woman's voice, shaking. Ethan? I froze. It wasn't Jessica, but I knew who it was. Emily, Jessica's best friend. The same Emily who had covered for her during her affair, who had lied straight to my face whenever I had asked where Jessica was on those nights she had been out with the girls. I hadn't spoken to her in over a year, and now, out of nowhere, she was calling me? Something was wrong. I exhaled slowly. What do you want, Emily? She hesitated. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, shaky and uneven, like she was about to cry. And then she dropped the bomb. It's Jessica. She's in trouble. I clenched my jaw. Not my problem. Ethan, please. Emily's voice cracked. She's really messed up. She's been drinking a lot, making bad decisions, and now she's mixed up with some bad people. I shook my head, letting out a dry laugh. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I don't know what you expect me to do, I said, walking toward my car. Jessica made her choices. She's not my responsibility. I know, Emily whispered, but she's been asking for you. I stopped. Asking for me? Emily rushed to fill the silence. She won't listen to anyone. She's reckless, out of control. She keeps saying your name, talking about how she needs to fix things. I cut her off. Let me guess. She made a mistake and wants another chance? Emily hesitated. I don't know. But Ethan, I'm scared. She's been hanging around some really dangerous people. And I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. Emily, let me make this clear. Jessica is not my concern anymore. She made her bed. If she's lying in it with scumbags now, that's her problem. Emily sniffled. Ethan, please, just talk to her. I shook my head. No. And then I hung up. That should have been the end of it. But a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I didn't care about Jessica. Not anymore. I had made my peace with the past and moved on. But the way Emily had sounded, the fear in her voice, it gnawed at me. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about that last conversation with Jessica. You'll regret this. Had that been a threat? A warning? Or just another one of her manipulative games? I should have let it go. But I didn't. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to find out just how deep in the mud Jessica had sunk. And I was going to end this once and for all. 2 days later, I found her. It wasn't hard. Emily hadn't given me an exact location, but she had mentioned Jessica was in trouble because of the people she was hanging around. Jessica was always the type who needed attention. She wouldn't suffer in silence. She would be somewhere loud, somewhere chaotic. So I started looking in the places I knew she would go when she wanted to drown in bad decisions. And that's when I found the bar. It was a rundown dive on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where fights broke out every night, and the cops only showed up when someone was already bleeding out. I walked in, and within seconds, I spotted her. Jessica, sitting at the bar, drink in hand, laughing at something a guy next to her had said. And not just any guy. Travis. The same guy she had cheated on me with. Something inside me snapped. I took a deep breath, forcing my face to stay neutral as I walked forward. Jessica hadn't seen me yet. She was too busy giggling like a fool, her hand resting on Travis's arm, looking up at him like he was the greatest thing in the world. I felt nothing. Not jealousy, not heartbreak, just disgust. I stopped a few feet away. Jessica. Her head whipped around, eyes widening when she saw me. For a second, she just stared, mouth slightly open, like she couldn't believe I was real. Then she smirked. Well, look who finally decided to come crawling back. Travis turned in his seat, sizing me up. He was a big guy, muscles straining against his too-tight shirt, his cocky grin already pissing me off. Jessica leaned back, swirling the drink in her glass. Did Emily send you? I ignored the question. We need to talk. She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Oh, now you want to talk? After a whole year of silence. I kept my voice calm. Outside. Now. Jessica arched a brow. And why would I do that? Travis chuckled, shaking his head. Bro, if you haven't noticed, she's kinda busy. I turned to him, my expression blank. Shut up, Travis. His smirk faltered. The hell did you just say? I leaned in slightly. I said, shut up. His hands curled into fists. Jessica's smirk widened. Oh, this is gonna be fun. And then, before I could react, Travis swung. I barely had time to dodge before his fist came flying toward my face. The bar erupted into chaos. And just like that, everything spiraled out of control. The moment Travis swung, instinct took over. I ducked just in time, his fist whizzing past my head and slamming into the wall behind me. The sickening crunch of bone meeting brick echoed through the bar. Travis let out a strangled curse, clutching his hand, but he wasn't done. I straightened up just as he lunged again. Big mistake. I stepped to the side, grabbed the back of his shirt, and drove my knee straight into his ribs. He gasped, stumbling back, knocking over a bar stool. Glass shattered on the floor, and suddenly, the whole damn place was alive with chaos. People yelling, a couple of drunk idiots cheering us on, the bartender shouting something about calling the cops. Through it all, Jessica just sat there, watching. She took a slow sip of her drink, eyes glittering with amusement, like this was just another show for her. And maybe it was. Maybe she had wanted this to happen. Travis recovered fast. He was bigger than me, but he was sloppy. He charged again, swinging wildly. I dodged once, twice, then I saw my opening. One solid punch to the jaw and he went down. Hard. Silence fell over the bar. Travis groaned, spitting blood onto the floor. The bartender looked furious, but no one stepped in. I turned to Jessica. Outside. Now. This time she didn't argue. She slid off her stool, adjusting her dress, giving me that smug little smirk that used to drive me crazy. Well, she purred. If you wanted my attention, you could have just bought me a drink. I clenched my jaw. Move. She rolled her eyes but followed me out. The night air was cold, sharp against my skin. My knuckles throbbed from the fight, but I ignored the pain. Jessica lit a cigarette, exhaling a slow stream of smoke. So, she said, voice light, miss me? I let out a sharp laugh. Are you serious? She smirked. You came looking for me, didn't you? I shook my head. No. Emily called me. She was worried about you. Jessica made a face. Of course she did. That girl worries too much. Maybe because you're spiraling. Jessica's eyes flashed. Oh, please, don't act like you care. You disappeared, Ethan. Didn't even give me a damn warning. I stared at her, stunned. She was really trying to flip this on me. You cheated on me, Jessica, I said, my voice flat. With Travis, of all people. And now you're here, drinking with him like nothing happened. She took another drag of her cigarette. And, I blinked. And, she exhaled smoke, shrugging. It's been over a year, Ethan. People move on. Unbelievable. You're unbelievable. She tilted her head, a cruel smile playing on her lips. What? Did you think I'd be sitting at home crying over you? Please. I took a deep breath, forcing my hands to stay at my sides. I had to remind myself. This was who she was. She had always been like this. Selfish. Manipulative. Twisting the knife just to see if she could still get a reaction. I refused to give her one. Emily says you're in trouble, I said, keeping my voice even. That you've been mixed up with some dangerous people. Jessica rolled her eyes. Oh, for God's sake. Emily is dramatic. Jessica, she huffed, tossing her cigarette to the ground, grinding it under her heel. Fine. Yeah, I've had some bad luck lately. Owe some people money. But it's nothing I can't handle. I crossed my arms. Who do you owe? She hesitated. That was new. For the first time, she looked nervous. Jessica, I pressed. Who? She bit her lip, glancing around, like she was checking if anyone was watching. Then she sighed. His name is Vincent. That name sent a chill down my spine. Vincent DeLuca, loan shark, gang enforcer. A guy who didn't just break legs when you didn't pay, he made people disappear. I clenched my fists. Jessica, what the hell did you do? She shifted uncomfortably. I borrowed some money. Just a little. How much? She hesitated. Jessica, she sighed. 30 grand. My stomach dropped. Jesus Christ. She held up her hands. I'm handling it. Like hell you are. I snapped. Do you even have that kind of money? She didn't answer. Of course she didn't. I ran a hand through my hair. How long until he comes collecting? Jessica glanced at her watch. About an hour? I stared at her, my pulse hammering. Are you kidding me? She smirked. What can I say? Timing's a bitch. I let out a sharp breath. You are insane. She grinned. And yet, here you are, still playing the hero. I shook my head. I'm not here for you. I just don't want your mess dragging me into something I can't walk away from. Jessica took a step closer, her voice lowering. Ethan, if you leave me here, I don't know what's gonna happen. And for the first time that night, I saw real fear in her eyes. The smug, manipulative Jessica was gone. This was a woman who was truly out of options. I closed my eyes for a moment, exhaling slowly. I should have left. I should have walked away, let her deal with the consequences of her own reckless choices. But I knew what Vincent DeLuca did to people who didn't pay up. And no matter how much I hated her, I didn't want to be the reason she ended up in a ditch. I opened my eyes. Get in the car. Jessica blinked. What? I said. Get in the car. She hesitated for only a second before hurrying to the passenger side. I got behind the wheel, gripping it so tightly my knuckles turned white. What the hell was I doing? This was a mistake. But it was too late now, because Vincent was coming, and we were running out of time. The car roared to life as I yanked the gearshift into drive, my foot slamming the accelerator before Jessica could even buckle her seatbelt. The tires screeched against the asphalt as we shot down the road, leaving the bar and Travis far behind. Jessica sat beside me, arms crossed, eyes flicking between the road and me. She looked amused, like she always did when she thought she had me right where she wanted. But beneath that smirk, I could see it, fear. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere Vincent won't find you. She snorted. Cute. You think that place exists? I didn't answer. I just gripped the wheel tighter, my mind racing. Vincent DeLuca wasn't just some low-level thug. He was the guy criminals owed favors to when they screwed up. And Jessica? She had screwed up bad. 30 grand wasn't just an oops kind of debt. It was a disappear and never be found kind of debt. And now, by getting involved, I had just painted a target on my own back. I should have left her there. Should have walked away. But no, I had to be the idiot who still had some scrap of morality left. I exhaled sharply. Tell me exactly what happened. Jessica shifted in her seat. I told you. I borrowed some money. Bad investment, lost it. Now Vincent wants it back. End of story. Bullst. She sighed, rubbing her temples. Fine. You want details? I got into a card game with Vincent's guys a few months back. Got cocky, kept raising. Thought I was on a hot streak. Then boom, lost everything. Couldn't cover it. Vincent gave me some time to pay it back with interest. And she hesitated. Jessica, I pressed. What did you do? She swallowed hard. I may have borrowed more money from someone else to pay Vincent back. Then lost that too. I groaned, dragging a hand down my face. Jesus Christ, Jessica. You borrowed money to pay off borrowed money. She shrugged. It was working for a while. You idiot. Jessica huffed. Look, I didn't ask you to come save me. Okay? You could have just let me handle it. Handle it? Jessica, Vincent's not a guy you handle. He's a freaking executioner. She fell silent, biting her lip. She knew I was right. The highway stretched ahead, the neon lights of the city fading behind us. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to keep moving. But deep down, I knew it was pointless. Vincent would find her. And when he did, he'd find me too. My thoughts were interrupted by the sharp buzz of my phone vibrating in the cup holder. I glanced down. Unknown number. Jessica saw it too. Her face paled. Don't answer it, she whispered. I picked up. Well. A smooth voice cooed from the other end. Took you long enough, Ethan. Vincent. My grip on the wheel tightened. How'd you get my number? A low chuckle. Come on, now. You think I don't keep tabs on my debts? I glanced at Jessica. Her knuckles were white, fingers digging into her dress. She's not paying you back, I said. So let's cut the S***T. What do you want? Vincent sighed dramatically. You're a real straight-to-the-point kind of guy. I respect that. All right, let's talk business. Jessica owes me 30 grand. With interest, we're looking at 50. I swallowed hard. 50 grand. That wasn't money you found lying around. That was money people killed for. Vincent continued. Now, I'm a reasonable man, Ethan. I don't like violence. But I also don't like being disrespected. Your little runaway act? That's disrespectful. I could hear his smirk through the phone. But lucky for you, I'm in a good mood. So here's the deal. You bring Jessica back to me in 1 hour and maybe, just maybe, I don't break her pretty little fingers one by one. Jessica inhaled sharply. And if I don't? I asked. Silence. Then Vincent chuckled. Then I come find you. The line went dead. I threw the phone onto the dashboard, gripping the wheel so hard my fingers ached. My heart pounded in my ears. Jessica stared at me, eyes wide. He's bluffing, she said, voice small. I turned to her, jaw clenched. No, he's not. She swallowed. So, what do we do? I stared at the empty road ahead, a million thoughts racing through my mind. Running was useless. Vincent had eyes everywhere. We needed a plan. Fast. Then it hit me. I glanced at Jessica. How much money do you actually have? She hesitated. A couple grand, maybe? Not enough, I muttered. Then another idea struck. A stupid idea. A dangerous idea. But it was the only shot we had. I turned the car around. Jessica blinked. Wait. What are you doing? We're not running, I said. Her breath hitched. Then what? I met her gaze. We're gonna steal it. Her eyes widened. Steal what? The money. Jessica let out a stunned laugh. From who? Ethan, this is Vincent DeLuca we're talking about. You don't just rob him. I smirked. Who said anything about robbing Vincent? Her lips parted in shock. I hit the gas, speeding toward the city. I know a place. I said. And if we pull this off, we're gonna make Vincent think twice about ever coming after us. Jessica stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Not even close. The city skyline came back into view as I pushed the car to its limit, weaving through traffic like a man possessed. Jessica sat stiffly in the passenger seat, her fingers drumming anxiously on her knee. She kept glancing at me like I'd grown a second head. "You're actually serious about this?" she asked, her voice laced with disbelief. I smirked. "If you've got a better idea, now's the time," she scoffed. "Better than robbing someone?" "Yeah, I think anything would be better." I tightened my grip on the wheel. "We don't have time to argue, Jess. Vincent's already hunting us. We either come up with 50 grand in the next hour or we're both dead. You want to beg for mercy? Be my guest. I'd rather take a chance." She exhaled sharply, rubbing her temples. "Fine. But who the hell are we stealing from?" I hesitated for a beat before answering. "Travis." Jessica's head snapped toward me so fast I thought she might get whiplash. "Are you insane? You just broke his damn arm." "Exactly." I kept my eyes on the road, jaw clenched. "Which means he's pissed, in pain, and probably careless right now. And Travis isn't just some low-level bartender. He runs side hustles for people like Vincent. He's got cash. A lot of it." Jessica's mouth opened, then closed. She knew I was right. Travis wasn't just serving drinks. He was laundering money, moving product, and taking cuts from backroom deals. He always bragged about keeping his earnings stashed close enough for us to grab. "But how?" she finally asked. I took a deep breath. "I have a plan." 20 minutes later, we were parked a block away from Travis's apartment. The place was a dump, an old brick building with flickering streetlights and graffiti covering the walls. The kind of place where people minded their own business. Jessica shifted nervously in her seat. "This is crazy," she muttered. "Yeah," I admitted, checking my watch. "But crazy is all we've got." I reached under my seat, pulling out a crowbar I kept for emergencies. Jessica eyed it warily. "We're not killing him, Ethan." I rolled my eyes. "Relax. We just need to scare him." She exhaled slowly, gripping the handle of the car door. "All right, let's do this." The apartment door wasn't even locked. Typical Travis. Always too confident, too cocky. He probably thought no one would be dumb enough to come after him. I pushed the door open, and the smell of stale beer and cheap cologne hit me instantly. Inside, the place was a mess. Clothes on the floor, half-empty bottles scattered across the counter. And in the middle of it all, sprawled out on his ratty couch, was Travis himself. His arm was in a makeshift sling, his face still bruised from our last encounter. He was holding a beer in one hand, phone in the other. He didn't even look up as we stepped inside. "Unless you brought me painkillers or a damn apology," he muttered. "Get the hell out." Jessica glanced at me. I didn't hesitate. I slammed the crowbar against the coffee table, sending empty bottles flying. The noise was deafening in the tiny apartment. Travis jumped, his phone clattering to the floor. "What the F?" I grabbed him by his shirt, yanking him forward until our faces were inches apart. His breath reeked of alcohol. "Where's the money, Travis?" I growled. His eyes darted to Jessica, then back to me. "What money?" I shook him hard enough to rattle his teeth. "Don't play dumb. Vincent's money. The cash you've been holding onto for him. Where is it?" He let out a strained laugh. "Oh, you're out of your damn mind. You think I'm just gonna hand over Vincent's money?" Jessica leaned in, her voice dangerously sweet. "If you don't, Vincent's gonna find out you let me walk away with it." Travis's smirk faltered. She tilted her head. "Think about it, Trav. Who's Vincent gonna be angrier at? The cheating wife who already owed him, or the trusted little errand boy who lost his cash?" Travis swallowed hard. I tightened my grip. "Last chance, man. Where is it?" For a moment he hesitated. Then, with a defeated sigh, he nodded toward the bedroom. "Closet. Floorboard. Loose one near the back." I shoved him away, moving fast. Jessica was right behind me, The closet was filled with junk, but when I pulled back the carpet, I saw it. One floorboard slightly out of place. I wedged the crowbar under and pried it up. And there it was. Stacks of cash. Jessica let out a sharp breath. Holy S******. I grabbed as much as I could, stuffing it into the bag we'd brought. My pulse pounded. We actually pulled it off. Behind us, Travis groaned. You guys are so kid. Jessica smirked. Yeah? So are you. I grabbed her arm. Let's go. We bolted. The moment we hit the street, I knew something was wrong. Jessica stopped dead. Ethan. I followed her gaze. A black SUV sat parked at the corner, engine idling. Tinted windows. No plates. My stomach dropped. Vincent. Jessica's hand tightened around mine. What do we do? My mind raced. Running was useless. Hiding? No chance. So I did the only thing I could. I opened the bag, grabbed a stack of cash, and threw it onto the pavement. The SUV door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in all black. Not Vincent, but one of his guys. He looked at the money on the ground, then at us. Then his lips curled into a slow, knowing smirk. Smart move, he said. I swallowed hard. Tell Vincent that's his cut. The man chuckled, shaking his head. Oh, Vincent's gonna want more than that. Jessica stiffened beside me. Like what? The man's grin widened. A favor. I clenched my jaw. We weren't out of this. Not yet. And somehow, I knew this was only the beginning.